Right. If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. Hey everyone, it's been Day 98 here, and I'm back for more podcast goodness of talking with caffeine. I got my two guests here today. One's been here, one's been on them before. Other one's a brand new one. All right, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Brian. My channel is Brainbug, where we talk about arthropods and we talk about science and we learn science via arthropods.
I like the practiced intro. I'll just go ahead. So I'm Walker. I have a reasonably small YouTube channel, Just Walking Fish. It's been pretty inactive for a while, but I like talking about science in general, just biology in general, and also, creationist debunking stuff is another pet passion of mine.
Always good. And welcome to our alternative viewing besides anything else on TV.
Yeah, have to tear away from it for a little bit. Honestly, it's good for a break because it's been too stressful.
Yeah,
way more stressful than it should have been.
Been watching States a little too closely here. So I said that to Dapper Dino earlier, and he's in the live chat there. Thank you for streaming something different tonight. That was much appreciated.
That was nice. I was listening along. I wasn't typing in chat, but I was there.
Yeah, we had PZ Myers on tonight, so that was something different too. So,
what channel?
Mama Atheist.
Yeah.
She's a climate scientist. Me and her do a lot of collabs together. She's pretty cool.
Nice. Well, a few weeks ago or months ago, how long it's been, Walker was on my channel here, and we talked about how us as tetrapods got to the land, but unfortunately, we weren't the first ones to make it.
Yeah,
not by a long shot. And
because of that, there's a lot of ecological niches that tetrapods never even had a shot at, especially on the micro scale.
Mm-hmm.
Arthropods beat us by hundreds of millions of years onto land. Yeah, we have fully terrestrial myriapods from the Ordovician. So, I mean, you're talking a long time, but to kind of get to why we got there and how we got behind and then kind of moved into the larger scale niche, we kind of got to go back to the beginning. I had, let me see, we'll start with that one. There we go. So, Walker, you want to talk us through what we're looking at here?
Oh, well, this is so I'm not a huge Evo Devo guy, but this is just embryonic development, right? So this is the most basal bilateralian split. On the top you have the protostomes, the bottom you have the deuterostomes. The deuterostomes, the blastopore opens and it becomes the anus, whereas the blastopore and protostomes opens and it becomes the mouth first, right? And so us and echinoderms would make up pretty much all the deuterostomes. There's also like hemichordates. And then like spiralians and arthropods are the two main groups that are protostomes. Of course, there's other groups though. There's a bunch of other groups that are protostomes.
Protostomia is a lot of they're
substantially larger.
And they're very different.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's deuterostomes that are very different than tetrapods as well, but
So these are
protostomes, things like they're. Am I cutting out?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Well, I was advised that with protostomes, you have like chitin, like the basically that's what their exoskeletons composed of, and you find that more so in like funguses. Then you don't really find chitin too much in deuterostomes. I mean, you do find it in fish scales and things like that, but it's really shines up here in protostomia.
So are these two are these every groups of animals except for like sponges and jellyfish, give or take?
Pretty much, yeah. The only ones outside of it that I can think of would be like sponges, jellyfish, and comb jellies, which are called ctenophores. And then also, what is the other one?
Sea anemones?
Sindera, but I think that includes.
Cnidarians, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking of there's this it's like a very small clade. It's like xenoflagellates or something. It's some weird name.
Yeah.
But there's only like 40 or 50 species. It's a very small taxa.
Primitive too.
Yeah, it's right outside of Nephrozoa, but it's bilateralian.
And this split happened before the Cambrian, right?
Yes. It probably happened in the Ediacaran, maybe earlier. I don't know. What do you know about this one?
Let me see. Well, let me pull that time scale up here. So I would somewhere I would think that that we're looking at least back into the Proterozoic era as far as the split between deuterostomes and protostomes, but it really doesn't. They split back then, but life was very, very simple at that time. So there wouldn't have been even between these two clades, there wouldn't have been that much diversity, at least not in their earlier life stages. Now, the interesting thing about the protostomia is the life cycles that you start to see, especially as they trend towards arthropods, where you see different stages of the life being vastly different. Where in deuterostomes, you mostly see just a enlarging of the adult form looks a lot like the neonate form, I suppose you'd say. But with protostomia, you start to see them develop and change anatomically quite differently.
Well, for a long time, weren't protostomias the top predators? The top predators, like with the.
Oh yeah, all the way up through. Well, in the oceans, up into the. I want to say like the Devonian, when you really started to see placoderms begin to dominate, but before that, especially Eupterids.
It's when we got the jaws.
Yeah.
Well, so late Silurian. So you don't really see true fish until late Ordovician, early Silurian. Before then, most deuterostomes are more or less going to be like worms, cephalochordates, that kind of stuff. Once you get the jaws, that's a really big breakthrough for our lineage.
That's but when we talk about coming onto land, it really took place somewhere early on in the Ordovician, because we had myriapods that had we have fossils of those in Ordovician rock that are fully terrestrial. So this isn't even a coastal animal or something that may have come onto land. This is something that was evolved to live specifically on land. Ordovician, I mean, that's a long time ago. That's prior to that, so a lot of people, when they think of the quintessential first arthropods, they think of scorpions, and a lot of that's to do with Walking with Monsters series. But scorpions. So scorpions didn't really show up on land until the mid-Silurian, and even then, the ones we had were like semi-marine or allegedly semi-marine. It's different.
Yes. Real fast. Speaking of that, I think, did you guys ever see the series Animal Armageddon?
Animal Armageddon. Is it about extinction events?
Yeah, it's about the 5 extinction events, or 6 of them.
No, I don't. I don't think I have, but would you know when that aired?
A few years ago.
Yeah,
like a six-part series. Talked about the 5 extinction events. Dinosaurs had 2-parters, and they also talked about the eruption 70,000 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say, just a quick, time scale, because for me, at least, deep time is incredibly hard to conceptualize, right? The myriapods and the scorpions would have beat us. They would have beat Tiktaalik by more time than we exist after the dinosaurs, right? So there's about 65 million years between us and dinosaurs, and there would have been about 100 million years between Tiktaalik and the earliest land arthropods.
Well, they were Arvician, and we weren't until Devonian, give or take.
Yeah, late
Yeah,
Devonian, and then there wasn't fully terrestrial tetrapods until like early Carboniferous.
yeah, that's when the tetrapods really started to challenge uh, land niches and started to kind of push back against that. I think as you saw the oxygen levels drop at the end of the Carboniferous is really where that balance kind of shifted.
Mhm.
But
Speaking of
w- w-
oxygen levels, real fast, were there any plants, some kind of plants or fungus on land by the time the pros
yeah,
got here?
yeah, there was different. They would have been more like I want to say like lichen kind of. I'm not real familiar with the plant life at the time. I'm sorry, but plants always kind of bored me.
Yeah,
But
no, that's fair.
they but yeah, there were plants on land. They weren't. I imagine they weren't very developed. But
They're mostly non-vascular at that time.
yeah,
I
no,
believe.
that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was guessing.
we were talking before the stream about this image here and how we're kind of anthrocentric by as the closer you get to the current period, the more concisely we start dividing little time periods up, like the Holocene ridiculously tiny.
Mhm.
But these periods down here, these whole sections here would fit into these the red area here, each one of these multiple times. These are ridiculously long periods of time. And the image doesn't do it justice. I understand why they do that, but it kind of gives you the impression that the proterozoic would fit, within the Paleozoic.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Talking about this earlier, I know that K means 1,000. I've done it before, and M's are a million, but I never heard of a G meaning a billion before.
I don't quote me on this, but I want to say it has something to do with like German or something like that. It has something to do with like a different language, which is why it's not BA, it's GA.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is okay. So you have in the Ordovician we have the myriapods. Now myriapods still around today. You got your millipedes, you got your centipedes, and then you have the symphyla. I think I said that right. Symphyla. Okay, it is a myriapod. It's a little bit different. It's than the centipede or the millipede. It has less legs than either of them. It almost looks like a silverfish. So this gives you a kind of an early example of diversification. When you look at the simple body plans of these myriapods, and when they're another interesting factor about them is that when they're when Symphala, well, when millipedes are too, but when Symphala more so than anything, are first hatched, they only have 6 legs. So you see the divergence with hexapods, with insects. From there is almost a example of neoteny within arthropods that led to the entire insect lineage. So having 6 legs is a neonatic feature of myriapods, and since that's the group that insects split off from, we can kind of trace that back, that evolutionary history.
So do we know which branch got the land first?
No, but the myriapods are the earliest that we have definitive fossil evidence. There's some trackways and stuff, but when you get back that old, it's hard to define what creature they're from.
Yeah.
So how many different like independent colonizations of land did arthropods have?
Well,
it's at least 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, because you have so myriapods and crustaceans, insects, which could say that the insects evolved on land. So they didn't. Insects. The insect clade's not a clade that was.
Were hexapods like already terrestrial at the time when insects came about?
Yeah. like so the ancestors would have been like silverfish.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen silverfish before, but they have kind of a unique body structure, and it's like this symphala or symphyla. If you want to say symphala, symphyla is actually very similar in structure, and you can kind of see where they diverge from one another. So that's the current standing on that. But technically, if you look at the way that they have protostomia divided up now, in more recent years, insects actually hexapods fall within crustacea or pancrustacea now. So insects are technically now classified as crustaceans. Yeah,
I like that one.
And you can the only crustaceans that we have, terrestrial crustaceans that we have around here are isopods. But isopods are a very diverse grouping of crustaceans, and they're one of the earlier pioneers too. The isopod group is really, I think I would say as far as crustaceans go, they're the most successful in colonizing the land niche or the terrestrial niche. But myriapods and centipedes, millipedes, they've been here quite a long time. And then we have, so what were we doing? I was listing off the groups. Okay, so you have arachnids with the scorpions. Scorpions and spiders, of course, have diversified from scorpions. But
did arachnids also evolve on land?
No.
Were they so arachnids and like multiple individual lines came up from the water?
Yeah, well, you'll have scorpions. Some of the earliest scorpions that we have in the fossil record are completely marine or aquatic.
So were these like the big
like Eurypterids?
I'm sorry. So were these came to land first? Were these the bigger scorpions? Or were these the smaller ones?
The ones that came on land, the earlier pioneers. Well, what do you have? You have Brontoscorpio or Brontoscorpio. Let's see when that. I'm not sure if that was one of the first ones. I know it was one of the largest ones, and it was semi-marine, but I'm not sure if it was the first one to.
Was it a true scorpion or was it a Eurypterid?
Brontoscorpion.
Yeah.
Brontoscorpio. It's not a true scorpion. No, not in scorpions. But let me see here.
Eurypterids actually nest outside of Arachnida, right?
Yeah, but Brontoscorpion, I don't think it was a Eurypterid. Let me see here.
No, it says it's a true arachnid. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So it was semi-aquatic, as you say.
Yeah, it was. And that's the one that I was talking about. Walking with Monsters. That's the one they always had on there. Catching
the giant dog-sized one.
Yeah, catching the early pioneer fish swimming across the.
It only got eaten by that even bigger scorpion.
Yeah, that got eaten by a. Well, that was a Eurypterid, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. That ate it. Yeah, so Eurypterids nest outside of true arachnids, like Walker was saying, but they didn't have too much success on land. I think that some of them did make that step, but I don't think they found too much success. I don't know if it was because the niches that they were moving into were already occupied, maybe.
Well, they already had the legs to get on land.
Well, that was one of the things that made Eurypterids so successful was they had so many diverse legs. They're like Swiss Army knife arthropods. They had legs that could, that would for swimming, legs for digging, legs for catching prey. They had legs, and this is all on one animal. It was they were amazing creatures. It's unfortunate that none of them survived, so we could see them. Their eyes were also fascinating. The way that they saw, they had like eye stalks with clusters on them. Not every species, but Eurypterids. And they filled so many niches in the ocean biomes at the time when there was. So you got to think back that there's no vertebrates. The gastropods. Well, you had maybe some. Well, you would have had gastropods and then different diverse families of Eurypterids, and these oceans would have been very different.
And like giant squids, octopus, whatever they were called. I forget they were called.
The giant cephalopods. I forget what they're called. The ones with like the really long cones, though. They were like 10 meters or something. It was insane.
Yeah, and what am I? It starts with an A. I can't think of it because I'm trying to think of it. Give me a minute.
What are you referring to?
The gastropod, or not gastropod, the cephalopod you all are trying to think of. The names escaping.
Oh, like ammonites, or
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's what I was trying to think of. It wasn't going to come to me. But so all these niches that we see now filled by vertebrates, like there was filter feeders. I mean, there was filter feeding Eurypterids. So they had their heyday in the ocean as well. Arthropods did, but that didn't last nearly as long.
My favorite species, it was like an Ordovician. It was essentially the Ordovician whale shark, and it was actually a species of Dinocarid, right? So it was a relative of Anomalocaris, and it began with an H. Herdia, that's what it's called. Yeah, so it was like about 1 meter, 2 meters long. It was one of the biggest organisms that were in the Ordovician seas, and it was also one of the last surviving radiontids, I think is their name. But like the lineage, the panarthropods, they nested right outside of true arthropods that contained Anomalocaris and Opobenia and all those other, extremely weird Cambrian aliens.
Yes, I just love to be able to go back and just look in that ocean. When he says biggest, they weren't
huge.
Yeah, like you're talking.
They weren't actual whale sharks, but most organisms in the seas were a bit smaller back in the up until the Silurian.
Well, some of them. So they try to eat us if we went back in time.
Well, you would be the big. If you went back in time and swam in the ocean, you'd be the biggest thing. Well,
you'd be the
biggest thing. There was some Eurypterids that got like crocodile sized.
Echolopterus.
Yeah, mostly like later on and like more towards like the Silurian, but they got pretty big. I still don't think they would have been able to there would have been they would have been macro predators. We'll just put it at that. They wouldn't have eaten things bigger than them. It's because
why would you when you can eat something smaller than you and you don't have to worry about hurting yourself, Right.
And they got pretty big on land too. It was that oxygen thing that we were talking about earlier. Up into the Carboniferous, the arthropods had this great advantage because the oxygen levels made respiration through spiracles a superior breathing function for that time period. And I mean, there really wasn't much competition for it, and they could get huge and be very efficient. And they had what gave them an advantage on land is the softer bodied competition, like gastropods that we talked about earlier, and of course early tetrapods even, is that they were already rigid. Arthropods were already capable of supporting their weight without the additional buoyancy of water, because they had these rigid exoskeletons, which is the advantage of the chitin. Now, chitin's interesting. In our lineage, we see more like a keratin being more prominent, and they serve a similar function. Chitin's actually what funguses get their pseudovascular structure from. When you see a fungi that's able to grow tall and grow full and big, and back during these early periods they really did. There were some huge funguses, but they grew with chitin too, which is a really strong polymer based material. Now, having that advantage, when they came onto land, they were already able to support their weight naturally. They had armor serving the same purpose, and most importantly, protection from solar radiation, which was also more prevalent environmental hazard at that time.
Yeah, did we have an ozone layer yet by this point?
I think we had so Walker, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I want to say that by the Archaea period, that there was a atmosphere developed.
Yeah, there's definitely an atmosphere by then.
And
the Hadean is when there was like a lot of volcanic activity and stuff, and it was a lot more tumultuous. But I think things had started settling down by the Archean.
Okay,
because that's when we have the earliest. What are they called? Like the big lumps of single-celled organisms that are like preserved in Australia.
I know we had the oxygen in the water first and stuff. I know we had the oxygen and the major oxygen in the air yet, enough for support.
So how far back are cyanobacteria? Because I know that's when we really started to see the
great oxygenation event is when cyanobacteria first appeared on the screen or the scene. I don't remember what specific time period that is. I always crap on people for like just lumping all of the Precambrian into one thing, but I sort of mentally do that. So
I still know. I can't talk.
You're good.
Why they don't consider that one of the big 5 or 6 big extinction events, oxidation events? That a lot of creatures died then too, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I think it just goes back to us being so anthropocentric, right? If they look like us, if they have backbones, or even if they don't have backbones, but we can measure their diversity on a macroscopic level. Then
I guess.
Yeah, then people, if you can't look at something and see, obviously, if you can't look at something and see it, that's a dumb statement. But if you can't macroscopically look at something, a lot of humans just don't really care about it. And I feel like that's probably the case for the Great Oxygenation Event.
Yeah, back when oxygen was evil oxygen.
Yeah,
and everything.
Well, it's the thing. They were so good, they were so successful that they killed themselves. Is what we had happen back then. They the biotic mats that covered everything back then. They were just so successful that they just sapped all the resources and totally changed the environment to propagate their own destruction. When you start having
the first true terraformers.
Mm-hmm. And that's where that's really where we start to see arthropods come into the scene too, tearing through those biomats. Yeah, I get that too. Wanting to that's like this image perfectly punctuates how little attention this stuff gets. It's because the fossil records kind of like you said, we have that really old rock in the central Australia. It's about the only place I can think that we have a fossil record from that long ago.
Yeah, for some reason Australia is just really good at preserving old rock. Also, I'm pretty sure all the Ediacaran rock that we have comes from Australia. So, I mean, I'm probably wrong about that. I'm not a geology person. There's better people to talk to, but at least the major Ediacaran fossil beds are from Australia. So, I don't know.
So then we have the Silurian as when we had arachnids kind of move into the main scene.
Yeah, you said they got a long time ago that you said they had plenty of time to diverse before we got there.
Yeah, this was during this period right here, as we were saying. I don't know if we said it before the show or not, but we really didn't see tetrapods make it onto land until way up here. So I mean, they had all this time period. We had the diversification, and it was essentially tetrapods never had a chance to occupy a lot of these niches, especially on the micro scale, because the reasons I was went over earlier about why they were so successful on moving on to land. They were also successful in occupying these niches. Of course, things back then, like we're saying with the ocean, things were so much smaller back then. But there were some huge animals. There really were, but for the most part, everything's relatively small. And so these micro niches that we see occupied by arthropods today. That's when they took those positions. That's when they put their pieces in place and have largely stayed unchallenged, because at that scale, even today with our depleted oxygen levels, there's really no competing with them. Anything that size is just going to get bowled over by the success of arthropods, and the years and years and years that they've had to specialize to those environments. The hundreds of millions of years that passed through here, while we were still struggling to develop a jaw.
Yeah.
They were there. I mean, most of the clades that we have today were already well established by the time the Carboniferous kicked into gear.
It's funny to think about to me.
Yeah. So, well, you see a lot of creationist talking points when it comes to arthropods found in amber and in fossil records, to say, oh, well, look, it hasn't changed. It's still the same. It's because they took those positions. They spent hundreds of millions of years specializing to them, while tetrapods were still, like I said, squirming
Flopping around like a seal. Yeah.
Yeah. And were able to just latch on to those positions and get better and better and better at living in that environment, that they didn't need to change. That by the time that tetrapods, there were niches that, because the oxygen levels dropped, that they were no longer able to occupy. The large terrestrial browsers and large terrestrial predators and stuff that were easier. Well, when I shouldn't say easier, but because tetrapods weren't exactly athletic back then. You're talking a lot of amphibians where we have
get from one water hole to the next water hole.
Right. Yeah, they weren't, but they were still formidable animals as far as that goes, as far as what competition they had around back then. It wasn't the necessary competition with the tetrapods that led to their decline as much as the oxygen levels depleting. But that opened up those larger animal niches for the tetrapods to move into, because they sure as heck weren't getting into those microcosm niches that insects had really, really specialized in.
That and the little amniote egg.
Yeah, right. And I mean, when you get into the Mesozoic, you really see arthropods take a strong position on the microcosm, because you have Hymenoptera, which is a fascinating line of insect that are eusocial. I mean, they look similar to the ones that we have that we have now, that are most similar to these ones that the earliest Hymenoptera are the sawflies. They're less social and more kind of a primitive biology. But when they took over that position in the environment, they really are able to compete with much larger tetrapods. So an ant colony can hold its own in pretty much any environment. So they're still competing with us, I shouldn't say with us, with us as far as pods go, but they're still competing on kind of our level, even though they're much smaller.
So our first air flyers were in the Triassic and the pterosaur line. When did our protostone cousins get to the air first?
Well, that would be, I believe, in the Carboniferous. I don't think we have any wings older than that. Let me double check that though, because I
know there's definitely, what's that one like giant? It's not technically a dragonfly, but it nests just outside. It's like Meganoptera, I believe, is what it's called.
Meganura,
yeah. And what's that specific family that they're in? It's some sort of fly.
Well, it's the same family with or not family. It's the same clade though with dragonflies and damselflies. Let's see. I was looking to see. I didn't want to
Griffin flies is what I was thinking.
speak out of turn with carboniferous. Okay, so we were right. I wanted to double check that. I hate
well, wings are pretty basal to the insect clade, right?
Yeah, even like flightless insects now, like beetles for instance, the vast majority of them are descended from flying ancestors.
So would the last common ancestor of all insects had wings?
No, because silverfish are the most basal insects that we have now, but most of the major clades have a common ancestor that was winged.
Okay, yeah, it's not. I would say it's not fair because we had to all three or four of our species, the dinosaur birds, the pterosaurs, and the bats had to modify arms to make wings, but they got extra.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I was doing research about like wing homology and all that kind of stuff. And wings are just so basal to insects that we don't know what that structure is homologous to. Like that we just have no idea.
Well, remember that did you look at that paper I sent you with the
Hymenopteran ones?
No, the one about wing development that they looked at the beetle embryo, and that its wings were like modified. I have to pull the paper up. It was really cool though. I think I sent it to you, didn't I?
Potentially. Did you send it to that paper sharing group chat, or did you send it to
No, this was before that. This was
maybe. It sounds familiar, but I'm not completely sure.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'll look into it later.
It was something I had pulled up to when we were talking about that meme about wing development. Essentially, yes, I'm saying that, and because it was the papers I shared with that group where that was posted, and I love trolling that group. I just drop in science papers in there and going to bed for the night and getting up and seeing all the
Facebook group.
Yes, it's that Kent Hovind Facebook group. It's so much fun there.
You haven't got banned yet?
No. Well, I don't know if you picked up on this, but I'm like super friendly. I like sometimes obnoxiously so. Author and year. Yeah, Speed probably does have that paper on hand. I think I sent it to him too. Anyway, yeah, but I don't want to get distracted on that. But it was really about why and how wings developed. Well, of course, it's all theoretical or hypothetical. I think at this point, there's not even a sound theory. I don't remember the author's Speed. Sorry, I'm kind of scatterbrained tonight. It's been a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, it just seems like, I mean, that kind of makes sense just because the wing development is so old in insects, and insects kind of suck at preserving because chitin breaks down easier than
right
calcified bone.
It's either going to be an imprint that just happened just perfect, or amber. And with amber, we can only go back so far. We definitely don't get back into the Permian with amber. Yeah. We don't get past the Mesozoic with amber preservation. But we can learn a lot of. I mean, we've learned a lot about, like, for instance, the evolution of spiders from amber fossils, because that's when that happened. Early Triassic is really when you start to see that divergence from scorpion-like ancestors. I say scorpion-like because the arachnid family tree, when you get back that far, is not really concise. They don't have a full understanding of who came from what, where Amblypygi fit, for instance, among the olipine, the harvestmen, or true scorpions, with things like the whip-tailed scorpion. They're not sure exactly when they diverge and which line diverged first when you get back. They want to. I want to say that we have true scorpions as far back as the Devonian, but I shouldn't say true scorpions. That we have scorpions that fit within the clade that we call scorpions now. But it's a direct line back that far with scorpions. But as far as the rest of the arachnids and when they diversified and who split off first, it's really kind of a crapshoot and depends on which model you want to go with. I think there's a lot of lines back when you get back that far that are like that, where there's different models. I know, for instance, like turtles, their line, how they fit into among the other reptiles, for instance. It's kind of a similar situation.
So was it the Carboniferous or the Devonian where we became less prey and more predator?
The Carboniferous. Well, on land and in the water. Because in the water, in the seas, yeah.
It's like Devonian.
Yeah, Devonian, because you got placoderms. Placoderms, like they exploded. You want to talk about the Cambrian explosion, the placoderm explosion in the Devonian. But that's when we really start to see large fossils being preserved too. It was really a great time to study morphology of tetrapods, at least, or leading towards tetrapods. Because we're all placoderms, right?
Yeah, placoderms were paraphyletic, right? So they included the last common ancestor of us and chondrichthyes as well, right?
Yeah, and it's paraphyletic. Yeah, now for a long time it wasn't considered to be, but as well that's the thing with our classification system as it is. It's really just setting goalposts where we say.
I know before they thought they split off before the sharks, before us and sharks, but now they're our ancestors now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I'm pretty sure what they think is they did split off before us and sharks, but there's some placoderms that are more closely related to us than to other placoderms, right? So Placodermata is I think that's their technical name. I don't know. But placoderms are like an evolutionary grade, essentially, that contains everything that has a jaw that's more derived than whatever.
Lungfish.
Or lungfish are... why am I forgetting the word?
Why am I
Sarcopterygian. You're good. Like the hagfish, is that what it is? I don't know.
That's what I was thinking.
Lampreys and hagfish. Anyway, something like they're more derived than the earliest jawed fish, but they're less derived than osteichthyes and chondrichthyes. I don't know. I need to review my basal fish phylogeny, I guess.
You're right. It was hagfish that I was trying to think of. I don't know why I said lungfish, but they're another milestone though for tetrapod evolution anyway. Lungfish
are cool. Yeah,
are good.
Yeah, don't get me started on lungs. We already did that one.
But speaking of lungs and stuff, the first people ones on land had different breathing than we do, obviously.
Spiracles and arthropods. Our book lungs have actually made some. Book lungs are what tarantulas and megalomorphic spiders actually have that allow them to get a little bit bigger on average than what you see in most arthropods. As book lungs actually allow them to push more oxygen through their body. Spiracles, excellent. Like when we had high oxygen levels, they could get really big and absorb a lot of oxygen just through those spiracles. Because spiracles is basically like an open pit that lets the air kind of flows through, and they can pump it to get more energy. But even in a dormant stage, they are still able to absorb enough oxygen at a small scale like what we have now. Being still, there's nothing moving, and they're able to respirate. And they can pump.
You probably don't mean like monster movie big.
No, well,
Arthropleura.
Yeah, Arthropleura was so.
It was Carboniferous cow.
3 meters. we have, and they weren't, and that's not 3 meters skinny. They were wide too. They it was the structure of their carap. Where am I at on camera? There we go. The structure of their carapace was almost like water buffalo horns.
But they were still plant eaters. So
Yeah.
Deterovores. Most myriapods are, except for centipedes, which are highly predatory.
Yeah.
There was
That's
a
why I
time
call
where
them
they
I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. There was a time where they would try to spin Arthropleura into a giant prehistoric centipede, but it really wasn't.
No.
So something.
I was actually looking into his phylogenetic, well, not phylogenetics, obviously, but his phylogeny recently, and it actually nests as a true millipede, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's ones that they're so tiny they look just like it, and they're so cool. I had one once. They don't live
Feather
very
millipedes,
long.
right?
Yes. How'd you know?
Well, because I was looking this up like 2 days ago, I swear. Yeah, so that's actually what I thought was really funny, because Arthropleura's closest living relatives right now, yeah, they grow like an inch or two. But like back then, you could have ridden this thing to work. Like
Yeah. We have most of the trackways are in Scotland. I think there's some in Canada, but most of the trackways of that we attribute to Arthropleura are in Scotland. But you can go and see them, and they're huge. You could lay in between its legs. That's how monstrous these myriapods were. But yeah, they're surviving descendants. I've had feathered millipedes before, but they're maybe 5 centimeters long. It was the biggest one I had, so they're tiny, less than 2 inches. They're adorable. I wish they lived longer, but I've had a few.
Can you get them to breed and just get like a population going, or
you probably could. You think it might take some trial and error. I don't know if there's a lot of there might be some breeding information out there, but I know they'd want it moist. In their deterovores, and Arthropleura was a deterovore too. Ate a lot of waste off of the. Would you really call them forest in the Carboniferous? They weren't really.
You could probably say forest, just because trees aren't a monophyletic grouping.
Yeah, it's a colloquial.
So you could just say like lycopod forests. I think that's a fair.
Yeah, so they definitely weren't probably weren't the trees we have now, and the pines and the flowering trees.
I like to envision Arthropleura. I don't know how accurate it would be. Is the large grazer of its time period, but large grazers, it makes you speculate on what the large predators that may have been. Now, when I was a kid, there was like I said, mentioned walking with dinosaurs. There was a misconception about this Eurypterid fossil that they
like arachnid.
Yeah.
That
they thought it was a spider, a giant spider. So I'm like, oh yeah, there's this huge spiders that lived back then. That's really not true. We had the biggest spider that we know about ever exist right now. It's the Goliath bird eater, Theraphosa blondii. But so there was no fossil record anyway of any giant spiders living in the Triassic or earlier forest. We would expect, if we found something like that, it would probably be in the Carboniferous, but I don't think even spiders were around back then. I don't think there's no fossils of it.
If I remember correctly, in the Carboniferous, they were big, and their amphibian cousins were kind of big, but us as amniotes were still on the small side at this point.
Yeah. Well, so that's a whole thing. It's really funny because the roles were reversed for a short time, as we've been talking about. But that's primarily because of an ecological effect called niche crowding, right? So if an organism is already inhabiting this specific environmental, niche, the thing that they live in, right? Their lifestyle essentially, then another organism isn't going to adapt to fill that niche. right? If you already have a large grazer, you're not going to have a cow evolve because there's nothing for the cows or the intermediates to eat and become more specialized. So it's pretty funny because arthropods are much better at being smaller because their chitinous skeletons are proportionally more strong when they're smaller, right? There's beetle species that can get run over by cars and they just walk it off like they're champs. And our internalized skeletons with our respiratory systems make us much better at getting big. But since we couldn't get big, there was like an ecological barrier preventing us from, becoming the dominant life forms. We eventually broke it in the Permian.
Yeah. So
we didn't break in; they broke down because they
it was the oxygen. But.
Yeah, was it the Carboniferous rainforest collapse that spelled a downfall for the arthropods and insects? Clades?
Yeah. I mean, there's correlation there. Definitely, I would say that it's pretty well established that was a huge contributing factor to the decline in large terrestrial arthropods.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but also don't arthropods usually require more humidity because of their respiratory systems?
Different groupings do, but to maintain larger sizes, they maintain and reach larger sizes in a more humid environment. Generally speaking, of course, there are exceptions. Certain, I don't know. When it comes to scorpions, they're kind of a special case because they've been. When it comes to special, I say this as I'm watching my desert scorpion dig a hole up here. It's just scuttling away. I wish I could show it to you guys. He's being all active, but yeah. So that's what gave me pause to say they needed more humidity because there are some desert arthropods that get pretty sizable, but they're also generally like one of the larger predators in their environment because tetrapods do very terribly in desert environments.
Mm-hmm.
So short of snakes like scorpions and large spiders,
centipedes as well.
Yeah, desert centipedes, but centipedes actually require a lot more moisture than arachnids or insects because they don't have the waxy surface on their cuticles, which makes it so they dehydrate a lot faster. So that's why I have this centipede preserved this way as opposed to preserved like I do my insects and spiders, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see how big and massive it was because
start shrinking.
They shrivel so much. It's ridiculous. It would that would be such a tiny centipede. I mean, insects and arachnids, they shrink too a bit.
Mm-hmm. So after your pets die, do you mount them on the wall?
Yeah. This one was my co-host for the first 8 months of my show.
It's a little morbid, but whatever works.
And now that always will be your co-host forever and ever and ever.
But I don't think about it as like their corpse, I guess. It's more like keeping a lock of someone's hair or something, I guess, to me. Because they would shed that and still that would just be what they like taking off their clothes.
Mm-hmm. I think that reminds me. Can you get DNA from a molted from molt?
Yeah, you can. Should be on the inside of the chitin. You should be able to get a DNA swab off that. Pretty substantial one too. I think that probably the best way to go about it. Most non-invasive anyway. Wish you could get DNA from arthropod preserved in amber though. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, stupid DNA breaking down after so long.
Yeah, someone needs to work on that.
Yeah,
but anyhow, so I was talking about centipedes needing more moisture. So that kind of limited, and that I should say that covers other myriapods as well. No, they didn't develop that feature that we see in arachnids and insects. so they have to stay in a moisture environment. Isopods is another group that has to stay in moisture environments for similar reasons. So even like a desert biome, they need some place that they can retreat to. There's desert millipedes too. Actually, I was talking to Walker about that just the other day. We were talking about buying desert millipedes. Do you want to see one of the ones I was talking about so you can?
I would love to.
How big they are. Yeah, I have it right above me here. So
I don't know why. I just want a thick, meaty log with hundreds of legs.
So just check it out. Check out my shirt.
Oh, I love that. Is that American Nessia or Nessia Americanum or whatever? The
Yeah.
American giant? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of arthropod research recently.
They do like to spend a lot of time curled up. But when this one stretches out, I don't know if I can get it to or not. I don't want to torment it too much because it'll release some goo on me. It's essentially poisonous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make sure you don't eat it.
Yeah, but when they get disturbed, come on, straighten out. When they get disturbed, they can do that sometimes.
I'm still alive.
That's so cute.
Isn't he adorable?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, since I've been spending most of my time in my dorm and all my classes are online, I want like a little friend. And all of my friends are arachnophobes. So I can't get any like tarantulas or amplegians. I really want a tailless whip scorpion. Like that's
well, they're not venomous.
I know. They just
is
look
that a
creepy to people.
herbivore?
I think they're
carnivore?
adorable.
This is a herbivore. I mostly give it like leftover from when we make dinner, the vegetables or whatever, cutting up like squash and stuff. It likes that. Fruits they really like. I also give it beetle jellies and give it some calcium powder on there to keep it.
So have you ever fed any of your friends to your other friends?
Well, that's the thing. People will ask me how many bugs I have, and it's like, well, I have, a dubia colony. I have a mealworm farm. I have these fruit fly cup things that are
Fruit flies. Have you made your own fruit fly? Have you made your own fruit fly speciation event thing?
No. But
is a better question like how many species you have?
Yeah, that would probably be a better question. Which is something like I don't know. It's not too many, like a dozen maybe.
It's pretty good. More than I've had in my house at any given time.
You said how many bugs you have. Are bugs and insects the same thing, or are they different? Are they different?
I use bug as a colloquial term. There is an official term for it, the true bugs, which is a clade. I always want to say
like beetles, right?
No, beetles are not.
Okay.
Hemiptera. I don't want to say it because when I try to say it, I always end up saying Hymenoptera, which is the wasp clade, wasp bees and ants. But it's not that. It's not that version of Hema. It's the like hemisphere. But those are true bugs. But bug as a term, and I've confirmed this with entomologists, so that it's a colloquial term that covers terrestrial arthropods, essentially. So any arthropod that is completely terrestrial could be defined as a bug, which covers crustaceans like isopods. It covers arachnids, insects, and the terrestrial myriapods. Well, there aren't any marine myriapods left, but potentially. And of course it wouldn't cover. That's why it's not really. That's why it's a colloquial term too, because there's crustaceans that are marine that wouldn't be bugs. But a case could be made for some species of crabs being bugs under that criteria too, like a coconut crab could be considered a bug with that in mind. And then it also forces you to kind of think about the life cycle of certain groups like dragonflies who spend the first part of their life in an aquatic environment. So,
That another thing about there might be insect bug things. At least more insects, I think, than other ones, but some of them have 4 stages. Are 4 stages. Other ones are only 3 stages.
For
Life
bugs?
stages. Yeah, like
Oh.
eggs, pupal, larva, thing. But
Well, like a praying mantis will have 9. Is a female praying mantis for the most part will have 9 instars, whereas the male will have 7. Things like that are very specific. Can be very specific all the way down to the species level. And also what stages they're in at the time. And that's what I was, when we were talking about protostomia and deuterostomes, it's kind of what where I was leading with that, is that arthropods tend to go through life cycles where there's some vast changes in their physiological features. And we see developments the whole speciation events that lead into lineages like I was talking about insects deriving from myriapod-like ancestor that's similar to Symphala based on the anatomy of a silverfish. So that's a neoteny trait of one of the developmental stages of these myriapods with their many legs, the neoteny to retain the 6 legs and move forward from that and kind of develop from that. Then we have insects with stages like beetles, for instance, who all have this larval stage, and they will spend, some beetles, the longhorn beetles especially, have a really long life, but over 90% of it is spent in this larval form. So a wood borer longhorn beetle spends up to 40 years as a larva growing inside the wood, and it matures out as an adult beetle form, and it may only live 18 months in that form. So 40 years as a larva, and then 18 months as an adult.
Like, all right, cool. We're finally adults. Let's go get it on.
Yeah. And that's why the development of wings really derives from that, because the most basal flying insects like dragonflies and damselflies, griffinflies, spend the majority of their life in a larval form that's in the water, that's underwater, and the adult form is essentially just a reproduction form. So they spend all their life as predators underwater, and then they mature, go out. The ability to fly is basically so that they can spread. They can move from so that they're not inbreeding in one little pond, so that they can fly somewhere else and diversify genetically.
Real fast. Dragonflies and stuff are really like the quintessential, what I said before, turn the tables, because when they're young, they eat the tadpole. They probably eat the tadpoles, but when they get bigger and frogs get bigger, it's reversed.
Mm-hmm. Well, but dragonflies are probably the most successful predators in the animal kingdom.
Really?
Yeah, they have like a 90-some% success rate when they target a flying insect. They're super efficient. It's because they're
dragonflies.
Yeah, because they're so fast and their eyes are so good.
I just know the dragonfly nymphs are terrifying.
Yeah, with their freaking jaw that comes out. Arthropod jaws in general. Have you ever looked at a scorpion's jaws?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the chelicerae.
Yeah,
it just sort of like grinds them up.
Yeah, you get scissors. They got little scissors in there that they cut food and stuff it into their mouths. That's really an interesting development of the chelicera, because generally those functions are served more by the pedipalps, like what like you just seen a spider shoving the food into the mouth.
My scorpions.
What's that?
The amplegians, the tailless whip scorpions, their pedipalps are insane.
Oh yeah, I used to have one that was and they don't have any venom. So what they do is they crush their food to death. Tellus spondyle, the regular whip scorpions. They're the same way, just in a different direction. So the amblypygids, they come from the outside, whereas the Thalaspondyle, that's such a hard word to say. The whip scorpions, they crush it down like against themselves, but they're harmless to people for the most part. Other than, of course, if you have a bad reaction to the vinegaroon spray, but I've never had any negative effects from that. But when you're a cricket, I would rather be stung by a scorpion or bitten by a tarantula than eaten by a amblypygid, because they start eating you when you're alive. A mantis will do that too because they don't have any venom. That's what the raptorial arms are, a supplement for not having venom. Species with raptorial arms are what you really want to watch out for, because they're going to start to eat you before you're dead. They're not interested in killing you. They just want to restrain you and start eating you. It's pretty vicious.
Like the wasps and hornets that sting you and lay babies in you when you're still alive.
Yeah, like and Nicnomoidea wasp. They're vicious. Have you ever seen a caterpillar that was injected with that when they start to come out? It's pretty wicked looking.
Yeah, there's a lot of aren't velvet ants also like parasitic? Like, don't they inject their larvae into beetles? I think.
Yeah, they sure do.
Seems like that's a pretty common trait in Hymenoptera.
Well, the
sociality and parasitism.
The stinger for a Hymenoptera is a specialized ovipositor. So,
really? Huh.
Yeah, that's what they evolved from. Oh, thanks, Dapper. See you later.
Bye, Dapper.
He's tapping out.
So when did, speaking of eating insects, eating things, when did the bees branch off, decide, hey, we're going to start being more pollen and honey thing than meat eaters?
Yeah, so that's the nifty thing about bees, ants too. The Hymenoptera is basically wasp. Everything in it is wasp, and there's some wasps that are close related to bees than other wasp.
And ants are basically just pointless wasps.
Yeah, and bees are herbivorous wasp. Essentially, is what it comes down to. And they're so we have Hymenoptera going back to the Triassic. Bees is what as we know today, wouldn't have really shown up on the scene until the Cretaceous, though. Maybe the late Jurassic, depending on, because they keep pushing the evolution of flowers back, but that's going to coincide largely. That was actually one of the things that I had to cover on Godless Granny's channel when she asked me to help her debunk some AIG nonsense. They were talking about the evolution of butterflies taking place before the evolution of flowers somehow disproved evolution, because but before that, the theory was that butterflies evolved alongside flowers, which when it comes to the reason why, it's because they're proboscis. Anyway, so they have they said, oh well, that's evolved to drink nectar from flowers, but there's so many other liquids that they can Lepidoptera that they drink with their proboscis, that there's no indication that it had to be evolved specifically for flowers. They drink there's actually a species of moth that lives on the tears of birds. It'll
tears of birds.
Yeah, it'll come up on sleeping birds and
I think a joke like they drink the blood. No,
yeah, your tears sustain me. Yeah.
Are there any like blood drinking moths or butterflies?
Not I'm familiar with. Nothing in Lepidoptera. There are some assassin bugs that are blood drinkers, and they will actually attack bats.
How the turds are tabled.
Speaking of the blood drinkers, where did the mosquitoes come in this family tree?
Mosquitoes, it would have split off from Diptoptera, probably in the Triassic. There's the fossil, and that's the problem with when we get into more modern groupings. To be specific, especially with the ones that are small like mosquitoes, is that the best fossil record we have of them come from amber finds. Not a lot of fossils dating back before the Mesozoic for flies in general, which is unfortunate because but by the time we actually see flies show up on the scene, they're pretty diverse. Whereas those, it can be inferred that there may have been mosquitoes or something similar to a mosquito filling that niche. Oh, there is a blood drinking moth.
Really?
Yeah, Dapper just let us know Calyptra. I'll have to look that up. Awesome. I did not know about that. I wonder if
that seems like their proboscis would translate well to that, if I had to guess. That's why vampire bats are so good at their job, because their elongated tongues that evolved for drinking nectar just translated really well to drinking blood.
Yeah, I'm just glad that mosquitoes. I'm just glad mosquitoes can't. At least as far as I know, they can't transmit COVID.
Oh, I hope not. Is that moth that he shared is called a vampire moth? That's super cool. I love learning new stuff, learning about new bugs. Thanks, Dapper. Drinking the blood of vertebrates too, so it's not messing around.
Metal moth.
I guess if the butterflies came from that lineage, they're like, like this nectar stuff tastes a lot tastier than that blood does.
Yeah, there's the giant centipede. The giant centipedes in the Amazon, Amazonian giant centipede, Scoliopendra gigantea. It actually eats bats. What they'll do is hang from the ceiling. Wait for the bats to fly by, and it'll snag them and eat them. It's pretty amazing.
Scoliopendra is the scariest genus of any animal on Earth.
Oh my god, I love them so much.
How big are those giant centipedes? Probably not as big as the ones in the Carboniferous. I'm hoping.
No. Well, in centipedes, we don't have any records of any centipedes. Well, okay, so there was one that how do you pronounce that? Anyway, I'll get back to it. But Amazonian giant centipedes, about a foot long. They are pretty robust. I've never had a gigantea. I've had a Cespinus, and that's the Vietnamese giant centipede, and they get the one I had was about 10 inches. That's what this one is too. This one was slightly smaller. I don't know how well that conveys, but it's about that one's about 8 inches. The one I had before was about 10.
So are those insects are the ones on your wall life sized or real life size? The big ones on your wall?
These ones? No, not at all. Maybe for the Carboniferous, but we haven't found anything that big yet. So, not.
I was just gonna say I like them.
Yeah. Someone got me those as a gift for having the background of my scene here.
Is it just the wasps family clade that are like, what's the word, working together, or other ones work together too?
Social?
Yeah, social. That's the word.
Well, so termites are social, and termites actually are essentially they're specialized Blattidae cockroaches that have just really moved into that niche, and they're actually a little bit, I would say, they're as eusocial as the most social of Hymenoptera can be. So the most cooperative termites are really on par with them. So that's a completely different family, and they are nested with they're actually within cockroaches, and then their closest relatives beyond that is mantidae, which is the mantises.
Interesting. Yeah, it's weird how all I don't know. To me, that's one of the reasons I've been into like arthropod phylogeny recently, just because it's so different. Like I'm so used to vertebrate phylogeny, so it's like I learn something new every time I hear about it.
Yeah, I'm glad I learned something new today too. I didn't know about the vampire moth, so I'm going to be looking at that. There's a centipede I wanted to, because the information on it is really curious, because I can't find any actual record of it. But it was like they said it was like the report I read said it was like 18 inches long, and I looked for any kind of peer-reviewed stuff on it, but it had a name and everything. It's going to drive me crazy now. Oh, there it is. Euphoberia. But now that says it's only 12 inches. So that's more on par with what we see today.
Right. Well, I guess you go to the chat now. The chat has any questions or not. Figure that the first question, like Speed Guy says, funny comment. All this crushing and blood drinking being live is somehow more common in the election channels.
Yeah.
Really
So
is.
yeah, there's like releases that say that it was 30 inches long, but I don't know if that's true. That seems like it's maybe some pop science misinformation. I'm gonna explore that, and I'll get back to everybody on that.
You have a question from somebody asking like how you preserve your bugs.
So this is 90% alcohol, probably. Maybe not quite that high. I filled it up to about right there with alcohol, and then topped it off with water. And like I was saying,
drinking alcohol or rubbing alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. Yeah.
So you're not drinking, not
ethanol.
No,
it's not just Everclear in a bottle with a centipede in there.
That would probably work though, at least for a while. And then I just have epoxy around the top of it to keep the bacteria out. Not that there's going to be too much bacteria in it. With these, the ones that are dried, I use alcohol, soak them in it for a few days, and then I will paint the cuticle with clear nail polish so that it preserves it. And it does pretty well. Cool. That's on all the tarantula. I only do the carapace though. I gotta tell you about this while on the subject. So I had my Pamphobetus macala. Here, I'll pull this down real quick. I had my Pamphobetus macala preserved in this frame, and something happened when the kids were down here. I don't know, but it fell. And the unfortunate thing about spiders, and I covered this on my mummy wasp video. The unfortunate thing about spiders is that once they die, they kind of crumble to dust. It's because I had found a spider wasp that was had died consuming a spider, and the spider wasp itself, the carapace is super dense. Wasps have really robust armor, so it did fine. This giant wolf spider that was eating just crumbled. So when that hit the floor with my Pamphobetus macala, the biggest spider I've ever had, passed away when I moved. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. And I had I think me and you talked about Pamphobetus for when we were talking about giant tarantulas. They're really pretty when they're little. They're like they're orange with a little black Christmas tree on their abdomen. Then when they get big, they're basically purple. So I had this huge purple and pink spider in here, and you kind of see where its legs were on the spot. What's in here now is my avicularia. When it passed away, I put it in here because I didn't want to waste the frame. But you can still see where the larger spider's legs were on there.
Yeah, I gotta say, when your hand was moving before, the shadow in the background of your planetarium, whatever it's called, it made like a giant something really big coming up there of the thing.
The hand coming out of the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but so yeah, with the spiders, I just do the carapace like that. But with larger and more robust invertebrates, you have to clean them out and stuff cotton inside of them. That other spider I had in there, and this one too, I just kind of slit it and took out what was inside and stuffed a couple cotton balls in there, and then glued it back shut.
See, have you ever tried breeding any of them?
I've bred mantises. Planning on breeding more mantises. I got some Asian giant mantises, and I have some ghost mantises that I'm going to be hopefully breeding. I've bred in the past Chinese mantises. I've bred scorpions, and I've bred I had an unsuccessful attempt at breeding D. diadema, which is amblypygid, like what Walker was talking about earlier.
Got any artificial selection going on in your breeding program?
Any what?
Artificial selection?
No, not well. I mean, as much as I'm artificially selecting by only having a limited testing group. Am I saying that wrong, or I say amblypygid? Is it you said amblypygid?
I have only ever seen the word written. That's how I am with a lot of those famous, like the big fancy Latin names and stuff. And I just do my best and forget the rest.
And it doesn't help when you go if you go to the expos, like we were talking about going to. You go to those expos, don't think that they're going to correct you because they didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I said, I'm looking for an amblypygid. And they're like, oh, what? And I even
said, what do they call them instead? Just
whip spiders. Whip spiders.
Whip spiders. Okay. I'm sharing it super fast. This is what we've been talking about. These dudes right here. They're amazing and terrifying at the same time. Like, look at this.
Did you see? They're non-venomous. They're perfect. This is one of the species that when I did the shows at the elementary schools, the D. diadema was one of the ones that I'd bring to let the kids hold because you don't ever have to worry about kids getting bit by them because they can't really do any damage at all.
On this dude.
Yeah. There's a
really interesting. Some of them have like relatively small pedipalps, and then there's other ones that have like, orangutan arms.
Yeah.
So we let the kids. We let the kids hold the brontoscorpions.
The brontoscorpions. No, I think I'd probably have to say no to that one. But they did like holding the Cuculania hibernalis, the southern black hole spider. Really large true spiders, all velvety. They liked holding some of them liked holding the D. diadema. But what can you say? It's kind of alien and weird looking. I had a vinegar rune that kids would hold, and I had at the time a Chilean rose hair, which are super docile tarantulas from South America. Actually, they're from the desert, so they don't mess around with water at all. I've never had an invertebrate that hated water more than a Chilean rose hair.
So on a personal question, when did you start your love for this or get into this?
Well, to be blunt about it, it's when I was a kid having insect gladiator battles in my backyard where we would put little insects in a gladiator pit together and make them fight like little hooligans. I wouldn't do that now.
Try to get out.
Most of the time they tried to escape. Sometimes one animal would have a predatory instinct and the other one wouldn't. But it wasn't just insects. We'd have toads and lizards and stuff like that in there too. Mantises never fared well, which sucks because they were always my favorite. But if they engaged all, the mantis usually didn't do too well.
A toad versus a lizard fight wouldn't be too interesting.
Yeah, because neither one of them really. Neither one of them would
leave. Yeah.
I guess it's one's bigger. It's one's really bigger and one's hungrier.
So when did you start keeping arthropods?
Let's see. I got my. So I had a tarantula when I was a teenager. It was I don't even know what species it was. I want to speculate, looking back, that it was a some kind of a phonopelma species, probably a Texas brown or something like that, something local. And then when I was a teenager, I had that. And then when I let's see, it would have been about, I would say 2009 maybe, that I started collecting them again, or started getting tarantulas again. I had that Chilean rose hair, and then I had a avicularia, and after that, what I get, I had my Arizona blonde. So then I got a phonopelma hensi. And then my daughter wanted me to do a Halloween party for her school and bring the spiders in. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go get some more stuff. I'm going to do that. And I ended up getting a vinegaroon and what else did I get? I think it was a giant millipede. I have one of these guys that I just showed you. So I ended up getting a whole bunch, and then I just kept adding to it. And because after I did that first show, everybody's like, "Oh, will you come and do our class? Will you come do our class?" All these teachers were asking me to come do bug shows for them. So I started, bouncing around and doing that. So that's, and here the last few years, I guess I want to say since I went to school and stuff, I didn't really have time for it, but when we got on lockdown, I was like, you know what? Maybe I could try doing that online. So here I am talking about bugs online and doing bug shows, and
that's how your channel was born.
Yep, that's how my channel. Actually, you know what my channel was born from? My channel was born from murder hornets. It absolutely drove me crazy listening to people talk about.
I guess technically they are. They just murdered bees, not us.
Yeah, right. That's what I don't like the name murder hornet at all. It's misnomer, because they're not. Murder would imply killing their own species. They're not killing their own species, and then people say, "Oh, it's murder, like it's going to murder a human." That's what most people think, is that they're dangerous to people, or substantially more dangerous to people.
Well, they are if you like honey. I guess they are if you like honey.
Yeah. Well, that's the real danger, is it's agricultural. So they there was a lot of misinformation going out when that first came. Was it last winter or whatever, when they first started reporting them? So here, I wanted to show you guys something real quick, since you were talking about. Let me take this down.
So do you think the fear for all, you think our European or African bees here in America will like able to adapt survive long enough to adapt to be able to fight them back, or to
be like the Japanese bees do with the shivering and heating them up and cooking
them alive?
No, I don't think that would happen, but I don't think that the hornets are going to be prevalent enough to completely wipe out all the bees either. I don't anticipate that happening. People, it's gonna have an impact for sure if they don't get it under control. But they actually, I seen a post on Twitter a couple days ago. Somebody tagged me where they had caught one of the ones up in the Pacific Northwest and put a tracker on it and traced it back to its hive and kind of destroyed the hive. So hopefully they're coming up with some kind of control measure for them. But European honeybees are invasive. People want to make a big fuss about, save the bees. These are an invasive species. There are native species that aren't going to be targeted by the Asian hornets when they
Yes,
invade the area.
yeah, they're occur for their bees. That's why they call them European bees or African bees.
Yeah, yeah, because they're invasive. Most of our native bees are solitary or live in small social groups and are ground bees. So
Carpenter bees,
but
are
they're not
good,
the
right?
ones that we brought over. So we only brought them over to make more stuff for pollinate for us.
yeah, there are native carpenter bees. Yeah, that's a native species. Well, there are some native species. I think that there's a few invasive species of carpenter bees too. But when it comes to insects and traveling alongside humans, there's not too many niches in North America that haven't been colonized by old world invaders, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when the killer bees were the big thing coming up from the south?
Yeah,
The Africanized bees.
yeah, that was a big scare, and that was kind of the same situation too. Was that it was an agricultural threat that the threat was that they would come in and take over the beehives, and then they wouldn't let the beekeepers come and get honey because they protected their honey because it was their natural defense. So it was an agricultural issue there too. Pop my screen up there real quick. I wanted Walker to see this. Lamont.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Check out this bathroom this dude built.
Is that a bee bathroom?
No, it's he's got
scorpion bathroom.
Yeah, he's got them. They just, I guess it's free range.
I would be scared to I guess they're like arboreal, so you wouldn't worry about stepping on them.
I'd be more worried about pinching them in the door or something. But
yeah, that's. I mean, hey, whatever works.
When we were looking at it, I showed this to my wife. I'm like, "Cause we get a place where we can do this," and she's like, "No."
But you get your own corner with the bugs.
Yep, that's where I am. That's where I sit.
You're in the bug corner.
Yep, I'm in the bug corner. All right, guys. Well, I'm probably gonna have to wrap this up. I gotta.
One last question before you go. Have you had to use your skills to take down any YECs about bugs and stuff, or bugs even a subject for them?
They never want to talk about arthropod evolution. It's either dinosaurs or primates. No one really wants to engage about it. I did, like I said, with Godless Granny. That's if you don't subscribe to her, check that channel out. She's pretty fun. But
could you just share your screen real quick?
Oh,
yeah. We're just trying to get an infinity mirror, and I was.
What am I doing? There we go. Sorry about that.
I don't mean to interrupt, but yeah.
That gives you anxiety.
A little bit.
Anyway, so she had me debunk a few things that they had put out for their homeschool material. So it was pretty elementary kind of stuff, but we talked about lava crickets and what I was saying about the butterfly evolution and stuff like that where there was misinformation about. But in the Facebook groups, I'll drop papers in there about invertebrate evolution and kind of ruffle some feathers because they're not prepared for it. They don't really know what I'm talking about when I like the paper I was talking about with Walker earlier about the wing development and in beetles. They aren't prepared for that because all they know is their scripts for responding to claims about human evolution and responding to claims about bird evolution or dinosaurs to birds evolution. That's all they're prepared for.
Do you have to use your skills to debunk anything?
Well, I'm lucky enough that my two areas of interest, like my main area of interest is like the Pleistocene, right? Which obviously comes up a fair amount because that's post-flood rock, according to pretty much all creationists. So, and it's also characteristic megafaunal species that everyone likes talking about. So I usually have plenty of people wanting to argue with me, including tomorrow. I have a debate with Standing for Truth, so that'll be fun.
Oh boy!
So that's your channel, your debate with Standing for Truth, and what about any kind of anything coming up on your channel?
On my channel, so next Saturday I am doing Monsters in the Bible with Jim Majors, where he's going to talk about the undead. So that's as they appear in the Bible. I do like a mythology show where we talk about different mythological creatures and entities from the Abrahamic mythology and kind of explore that. Had Dr. Josh Bowen on a couple weeks ago, and he's brilliant. But that's next Saturday. Later this week, what do I got going on? I'm gonna probably be on the Perspective someday. It's usually on Tuesdays, but I don't know if he moved it because the election. I know he didn't do it tonight, so maybe on there on Sunday. I'm not sure yet, but that's a call-in show that I do with Ethan, your friendly neighborhood atheist.
Cool.
A lot of fun doing that.
Well, either of you need me as a guest for, I don't like to do, but I'm always available. So I'm working.
I'll keep that in mind for sure. Yeah, sometimes I do those Saturday afternoon streams, and we just like I did with Walker, we look at memes or whatever, just have some fun.
Yeah, nothing of my channel really until it's like off my butt and start being lazy and start editing some older videos.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a catchphrase where you guys have a signing off catchphrase?
I currently do not.
I say take care and be kind.
Is it like BEE kind?
Yes, it is.
I like it.
Like I always say, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We'll see you next time. Bye.